But he left, so we're going to move on to the next guest, everybody. He got upset. We're going to move on to the next guest, everyone. We got them loading up. Unfortunately, that guy wasn't here for debate. He just kind of came up here to embarrass himself and ask for input on the fanfic. What's going on, Janet? How old are you?
I'm 53.
Wow, you're around the same age as my father. Do you support Trump?
I do.
Janet, why? That is so disheartening to hear. Tell us why. Tell us why. Take it away.
Um, there were, I don't know, approximately 7 million new jobs created when Trump was in office. Unemployment reached 3.5%, lowest in half a century. I totally support Trump's policy on the border. I heard the conversation earlier when you were talking about asking about what happened with Trump, and that it was on another show I was watching where you said, what did Trump do? Well, he did try to build the wall. So yes, a lot of it didn't get done. Absolutely. When the very first day Biden came into president, he shut down Trump's policies, shut them down. And yes, they tried to put a bipartisan bill in, but they were just trying to slip that in on the coattails of other things. So it was, let's sign this and we're going to do all these other things, and then we'll add this to it too. That's why it didn't get pushed through.
Okay, Janet, I'm going to respond to the first two things you said. You said that we had the lowest unemployment rate in half a century in his first term, as well as there are 7 million new jobs added to the economy. First and foremost, I don't think it's okay to look at things that happen in the economy and basically blame them on the president just because they were the president while they occurred. But even if we were to assume that logic is sound, which it's not, it's bad logic, it's illogical, this actually makes Trump look pretty bad. Because A, no, it wasn't the lowest unemployment rate in half a century. It was actually beat twice under the Biden-Harris administration. And B, the same way we had some low unemployment rates in his term, we also had the highest level of unemployment in the last 100 years in April of 2020 at 14.8%. So the same way you basically blame that 3.5% rate of unemployment on him since he was president, do you also basically blame that 14.8% level of unemployment on him since he was president?
Well, there's a lot of things that come into play, and that's why you have debates and conversation. And so when COVID hit and COVID hit strong, there was a lot of unemployment, which no, you cannot blame Trump for that, for COVID. Absolutely cannot blame him for
Spot on.
that.
You're
And a
actually
lot,
completely right. So you're now recognizing that there's about a billion and one external variables that can impact macro data from the American economy.
absolutely,
So then I want you to
absolutely.
isolate for all of those variables and explain to me precisely how Donald Trump caused that low of a 3.5% level of unemployment.
Well, Donald Trump supports bringing manufacturing jobs back, which he did. Manufacturing jobs, construction jobs, um, the pipeline, let's say that the very, when Biden first got in, he shut that down too. Lots of people were unemployed when Biden did that. I feel like you asked me why I like Trump and why I support him. It's
I have
because,
some data. Sorry for interrupting you. I know that I just interrupted you, and I actually don't like to do that. I understand that's disrespectful. I just wanted to be able to respond to what you said about manufacturing jobs. So first and foremost, would you agree that investment into American manufacturers is vital for the success of American manufacturing and the jobs offered by them?
well, now that's a big, broad thing. It really depends. Like investing in what? It
Well,
would depend on the company.
if we look at the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis and just look at macro level data for investment in American manufacturing, we saw under Trump's first term here, 2017 through late 2020, it was relatively stagnant. It actually went down from the day he went into office to the day that he left, even from the day that he went into office to the day before COVID hit. Look what happens when I shift the graph to the right so you could see the fucking boom in investment in American manufacturing under the Biden Harris administration. So if you want to talk about who's better for American manufacturing, I think that data I just showed you on the screen gives a
I'm not sure if
very
that data is
obvious
correct.
answer.
I'm not sure if that data is correct because,
So
and I'm not saying that to,
So I
well,
just
I
want to
guess I'm
clarify.
just saying
This
that.
is coming from the Fed, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis,
Okay.
and the source is literally the U.S. Bureau of Economic Analysis, which
Okay.
is a part of our government. So
Okay.
it's the most reliable data that we could have. But I mean, I'm willing to let you try to disprove it by offering me alternative data, but you won't be able to find alternative data because Fred reports the most reliable data.
Okay. And that's fair. There's no disputing at all. Kamala Harris, Joe Biden. well, I guess you can dispute it, but Kamala Harris, she was the border czar. She totally failed. Totally failed. I know you're going to laugh, but it doesn't matter. It is the truth. She totally failed on it. She did nothing to it. Didn't even visit the border. How many people have been killed by illegal immigrants since they came here? And this isn't about stopping illegal or people from coming here for asylum. If they come here for asylum, you come here the proper way and you apply for asylum. But all these people running across the border, having all these people in our country that we take care of because they don't have to pay taxes. So we take care of, and they're killing our people, and they are killing our people. And for what? What? Because they're here and we're taking care of them, and then they're murdering us. I listen to so many.
Are you a natural U.S. born citizen?
I absolutely am.
Yeah, you're 2 times more likely to commit a violent crime like murder compared to undocumented immigrants. You also said that they rely on our tax dollars, so they actually pay $100 billion per year in taxes on the federal, state, and local level, and they don't reap the same benefits that you or I do, like Medicaid, Medicare, or Social Security, meaning, if anything, they subsidize you by paying for the benefits you receive and they don't, not you subsidizing them, meaning that they're benefiting from the benefits they receive and you don't. You got it completely twisted and backwards.
No, I don't. They get free health care.
That's not true. Not on the federal level.
It is absolutely true.
Not on the federal level. That is not true. In the federal program that gives undocumented immigrants free health care.
Were you asleep when Biden was president? Because they handed them all of this stuff and medical cards. I watched so many of them, their self-pay on there, and talk about all of the benefits they received. They paid nothing. They got a medical card. Everything was free for them. Do you know how many scholarships my daughter, I was applying for scholarships for her, and she's a natural born citizen, for college. And do you know how many scholarships there were available for illegal immigrants? I know you're typing it in to look it up now. There was a lot.
No, I'm actually not typing anything in that to look up, apart from me just finding a screenshot from the IRS where it says that they pay $100 billion per year in taxes. So do you believe that? Like, do you believe that claim that they pay $100 billion per year in taxes? Because I told you that, and you just completely
because I don't.
Okay, so let me. So I just want to clarify that my source is the U.S. House of Representatives, and then I have a corroborating source from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. Okay, right?
Okay.
So please tell me. Let me guess. You disagree with the facts and the data because it proves your argument wrong.
No, I'm asking you, when was that from the House of Representatives? When was that put out?
Fiscal year of 2022 and the fiscal year of 2024, both under the Biden-Harris administration.
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought.
Doesn't this show like new reliable data referring to how much they paid in taxes under the Biden-Harris administration, which is what you were referencing? How could this be exactly what you thought when this is exactly what you were disputing?
Because what I'm disputing 100% is there's no transparency, never was, to the American people when Kamala and Biden were in charge. We found out so many things
you're
after
just conspiracy theorists. You understand that this is IRS data.
Not. You're cutting me off and not letting me talk.
I know I'm cutting off, and that's rude, and I'll stop after this interruption. This will be my last. I promise. I actually do, Janet. But you're disputing like reliable data from the IRS. You're disputing reliable data from the House Republicans, and you're disputing reliable data from the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy. And by the way, this is all reliable data that Trump accepts, because guess what? 3 weeks ago, Trump specifically went to the IRS to ask them to identify the undocumented workers that paid taxes to them so he could deport them.
Okay, so you do know. So let me back up a little bit. It's not necessarily in saying they didn't pay any taxes. It's in saying what they pay was not like, it benefited them. The taxes they paid to support a lot of the programs that they are eligible for.
What are those programs?
Hence, what I was trying to tell you, even for an example, when I was applying for scholarships for my daughter who has she was straight A, she is bilingual, and she's totally American, not of Spanish speaking, but she worked her butt off. Let me finish before you do this. Let me finish. I'm saying she worked hard for everything she got. And when I go to apply for scholarships for her, there's not very many eligible to her as compared to so many, numerous, countless. We looked and shifted with her counselors through so many pages of scholarships available for, if you're an illegal immigrant, you don't even have to have a straight A average. You could have a C average, and so many of them. But
let me ask you a question. What is your average annual household income?
Mine? Almost 200,000.
That's why your daughter didn't get any scholarships.
No, it isn't about that. It wasn't about how much money you had. It was about, if you are an illegal immigrant, you can apply for this. And there was so many of them. I lived it. I know. It wasn't like, oh, well, you make too much money. No, it wasn't that. It didn't
Listen,
even ask your income.
I think that if you're going to try to attack undocumented immigrants, like the last demographic of undocumented immigrants in America that you should try to attack are going to be those that work hard, go to university to become educated, to then exist in a demographic of highly skilled and educated laborers in our labor force that provide an exacerbated ROI to the American economy. You're basically like saying, well, look at these people that are hard workers. Look at these people that are going to school to get an education, to get a highly skilled job that they could only get with a diploma, with a degree. Look at these people that are going to make on average $1 million more than the average American because of that degree. And look at how they're destroying this country. You can't make this shit up. You truly can't. And then relating to all of the other claims you made about how undocumented immigrants are subsidized by the tax dollars you pay, once again, okay, you sound confident, you're saying these things with conviction. Name one federal program that benefits undocumented immigrants in this country.
Name one federal program that what?
Benefits undocumented immigrants in this country.
Well, I'm going to be completely honest. I know what it does, but I don't know names of them, but I'll look for you.
But I know the names of programs that benefit citizens. So do you. Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, food stamps, EBT. Like where Section 8. Where are they at for undocumented immigrants? Because guess what? Undocumented immigrants don't qualify for any of the systems I just named.
Actually, it does say that undocumented immigrants qualify for emergency Medicaid and access to emergency room care.
You do. That's true. That's true. That was passed under a 2015 humanitarian aid bill passed by Obama to ensure that every single human in America has access to humanitarian resources such as emergency rooms. But what's the next question? How much does that cost our government? $16.5 billion annually. What percentage of that goes to undocumented migrants? Let's assume 10 to be generous. That's $2 billion expense to undocumented immigrants per year by our federal government. How much do they pay in taxes? $100 billion. What's the ROI? You're spending $2 to make 100.
They also are eligible for refugee cash assistance. They received that. Many of them did when they got here. Cash assistance. You're saying no?
What's a refugee?
Well, they're claiming to be a refugee. There was nothing that needed to be stated on it.
A refugee is a legal status of immigration.
No, what I'm saying is they didn't have to prove it. There was none of that, and that was proven.
So in order to be a refugee, you actually do have to go in front of a judge and have them approve that said status.
Well, you should have had to go in front of a judge for a lot of things that all the immigrants were coming over. But as it was stated multiple times, it got to the point where they were just opening the borders. People were coming in. We don't even know who all was in our country because so many were coming in.
So now you're shifting the goalposts. Now you're saying that how do they open the borders? How did the Biden-Harris administration open the borders?
I'm not shifting the goalposts. I'm saying the truth. Biden shut down the wall day one and opened the borders. Said
how much of the wall was built? How much of the wall was built under Trump's first term?
Okay, so it wasn't a lot, but that's because it got stopped. It was a small percentage.
It was less than 3%.
Because he had people battling him on it.
Yeah, because he couldn't work with Democrats in Congress. He's sunk because he can't work
because most
in a
of the Democrats
bipartisan
in Congress, honest to God, we're not out for the best interest of the American people. If they would have been, then all the stuff that didn't happen with the border that should have happened when Biden was president wouldn't have.
You're just blaming the issue on anybody but him. Let's see.
Trump has his fault. I am not a Trump. No, you keep interrupting me. Let's see
if you could be a bipartisan, God honest person. I will let you talk after I ask this question.
You're trying to control the conversation.
You just got muted. You probably got a phone call. I don't want you to leave, so I'll let you talk.
Okay. So what I'm saying is, you're trying to control the conversation whenever I say this. I am not somebody who looks blindly at Trump and thinks Trump is a god or he doesn't have any faults. Because do I think Trump is an amazing person? No. Do I think he has a good bedside manner? No. But do I think he looks out for the best interests of the American people? Yes, I do. I think he's not afraid to speak his mind. Absolutely not afraid to speak his mind. And I think he's been attacked more than any person ever because of that, because people are fearful of him. Completely fearful of him. And I seen we were talking about all of the scholarships and you were saying, well, that's because you make that much money. There's so many scholarships that aren't based on how much money you make. That would seriously be Pell Grants. That's how you get based on the money you make is grants. Scholarships are what you worked your tail off for. to get a certain GPA so that you can get scholarships. But guess what? They weren't available to my daughter, but they were definitely available if my daughter would have been an illegal immigrant who barely got by in school just because of that. And as far as the birthright citizenship, no, I don't agree with that either. If you come across our borders illegally and then you have a baby and think that is your anchor to keep you here, no. Come across our borders legally. Get in line behind everybody else who had to get in line and do it the legal way, or don't come.
Great. I appreciate you so much for sharing all this information with us. So first and foremost, you said that no, it's not scholarships, it's Pell Grants, in which give underprivileged families more money to send their kids to school. So that is under FAFSA from the federal government. However, universities offer scholarships based upon family income specifically to their own students, not moderated, organized, or chartered by the federal government. So that's wrong. And then you said that there's other forms of scholarships that can fall outside of that, fucking obviously, like academic scholarships. And I'd also like to point out here that there at the end, you said that you absolutely disagree with giving birthright citizenship to the children of undocumented immigrants born in America. Guess who says that they get birthright citizenship? Because it isn't me. Okay, it's not Biden or Kamala. It's the goddamn Constitution. So when you say you disagree with that, you're not saying you disagree with the liberals. You're saying you're disagreeing with the Constitution.
I am saying that because I don't agree with someone based on their policy or their party. I mean, with their party, I agree or disagree based on their policy and what they're saying. I do disagree with that on the Constitution.
Oh my God.
Oh yeah, and Trump tried to change that too.
Okay. Guess what? He actually didn't. He just passed an EO that got shot down. So you're Are you fine with Donald Trump violating the Constitution?
I'm fine if changes need to be made.
I'm not talking about changes. Wait, so when Donald Trump illegally deported Abrigo Garcia and violated his constitutional and human rights, how did that make you feel?
But he didn't illegally deport him.
Want to bet?
When they told he was already on a plane, he didn't illegally deport him. And you said he wasn't a criminal. He absolutely is a criminal. He's in a terrorist organization.
Ma'am, would you like to bet?
He was in a gang.
Okay, we'll bet on that too. We'll bet on it too. Well, let's bet about the first thing. So you said he was not illegally deported. Put money on it. $100?
Well, illegal deported, but not by his policy. He's the president. He signed presidential orders.
Okay.
He can say that. This is how we're doing it.
What if I could specifically demonstrate that the Trump administration illegally deported Abrigo Garcia?
Because I already know what you're going to say, that the judge and the court said, no, he couldn't be deported. He was already on a plane being deported.
So once again, you're talking about Venezuelan immigrants. I'm talking about Abrigo Garcia. He's from El Salvador.
You're
talking about Holder case. So you did say that he was not illegally deported by the Trump administration.
Because he was deported because he should have been.
Okay. What if I could prove to you with certainty that he was indeed illegally deported?
Okay, go ahead.
But what if I did? What would you do?
What do you mean? What would I do?
Would you condemn Trump for breaking the law? Like you're condemning undocumented immigrants for breaking the law?
No, you're not. You obviously aren't listening to me, and that's why I don't like debating. When you totally try to catch someone off instead of having an honest debate and talking about the issues, that's what's wrong with our country. It's only about trying to catch someone on wording. Let's have an honest debate and talk about.
Read this out loud. I'm not even joking.
Wait,
please read this out loud.
Where is this? Oh, yeah, this is the court. This is what I told you. I already knew that.
This is the Supreme Court. Read it out.
Okay, and I already know what the Supreme Court said.
So could you please read it out loud? I know.
Well, I think everybody can read, so we can all read it.
So it says that United States represents that the removal to El Salvador was a result of an administrative error and that it was illegal. SCOTUS told us all and adjudicated with a final ruling that cannot be overturned unless they were to issue another ruling from the highest court in America that, yes, Donald Trump did illegally deport Abrigo Garcia, violating his constitutional and human rights. 9 of them, including 6 conservative justices.
I already knew that, and I told you I didn't agree with that.
You told me 30 seconds ago that he did not illegally deport Abrigo Garcia. Stop lying.
But I'm saying because that I already said the court said he did. But they uphold that they didn't because of the way he's doing things with his presidential orders.
So
and I agree.
Who has the authority to interpret the Constitution? SCOTUS or Trump?
Well, I agree with that. But President Trump also has the right to
you agree,
executive orders. And he did.
No. I'm so sorry. What overrules what? Do executive orders overrule the Constitution?
No.
Or does the Constitution overrule executive orders?
You're absolutely right on that. But I also believe
the Constitution overrules executive orders. Who's the ultimate interpreter of the Constitution?
Okay, I just said that and I agree with you, but what I also say
Who's
is
the ultimate interpreter of the Constitution, ma'am?
let me finish my question before I answer.
You're,
I know who it is, but
which
I'm
is?
also saying things need to be changed in the Constitution, and some things do.
Bro, okay, I just want to get this clear. Like every single, like I've been able to point
I'm
out
not
how Donald
bro.
Trump.
By the way, my name's Janet. Go ahead.
Oh, so it's not okay when I misgender you, but it is okay when you misgender trans people. You know, we'll
I
talk about
don't
that.
misgender
We'll
anybody.
talk about like it's okay when Trump misgenders trans people. We'll talk about that later though, because I just want to point out that insofar as our conversation today, I've been able to point out 2 illegal, unconstitutional things that Trump has done. And on both of those fronts, you say, I full-heartedly support him, fuck the Constitution. The Republican Party, MAGA, is no longer the party of patriots, okay? That red, white, and blue, that shit's not going to get you anywhere anymore. You cannot tote that the Founding Fathers would support you today. You cannot say that you're anything but traitorous vermin to this country, okay? The reason why I say that is because we actively see Donald Trump implementing all 14 tenets of fascism, okay? The one that we're discussing right now is specifically a consolidation of power to one branch of the government and a disdain for human rights. And every single point I've been able to prove definitively, this one with an order from the Supreme Court, and you've said, guess what? I don't care. In fact, I support it. You're not a patriot. I am. You're a traitor. You're a traitor. The same traitors that supported Donald Trump when he tried to coup, steal, and rig the outcome of the 2020 election. That's right. I need to thank a couple people, though. Tiger, thank you so much for the $10 over on YouTube Super Chat. I really appreciate you for the love, Tiger. Let's get 100 Tiger W's. As well as Hannah for the $10 over on YouTube Super Chat. That is incredibly kind of you, Hannah and Tiger. As well as Alyssa, thank you for the $10 on Venmo. Alyssa says, why is she applying for scholarships for a kid? That's a saying in of itself. I mean, sometimes parents help. I don't see that as a bad thing. And then Jasmine, thank you for the $25 as well, Jasmine. Let's get 250 Jasmine W's. Jasmine says, please tell Janet it's nobody's fault but her own daughter's that she's not competitive for scholarships. Damn, you're cooking, Jasmine. I do appreciate you for the $25 on Venmo. As well as Martin, thank you so much for the $20 on PayPal. Let's shout out Martin. Let's get 200 Martin W's. Martin says, Dean MAGA is so concerned with immigration. However, they absolutely refuse to accept the fact that Donald Trump just gave asylum to the literal family members of Mexican cartels. That is right. He did do that. They don't talk about that. Wonder why, dude. As well as KITA. Thank you for the $30 over on Venmo. Thank you so much for the love, KITA. KITA says, thank you so much for calling them what they are. We all need to do it. It is an imperative to call out fascism very loud and explicitly, and you cannot be told that you're crazy anymore. The day of liberals being hyperbolic and insane for calling Trump an authoritarian and or fascist are over, because guess what? History, education, and academia are on our side. Shout out KITA for the $30. That is incredibly kind of you. As well as Carmen, thank you for the $50 super chat over on the YouTube stream. Shout out Carmen with a C. Carmen says, you're amazing. Keep changing the world one conversation at a time. Carmen, that is so incredibly kind of you. 500 Carmen W's and 1,000 Sid W's for the $100 super chat on the YouTube stream saying, hi, Dean. The guest is giving me a headache. They're giving me a headache too, Sid. Thank you for the $100. Oh my God, Sid. Huge shout out to Sid and all of the donors. Holy fuck. Thank you guys so much. If you're watching and you want to support me and support this stream, you could do so via the Venmo and PayPal link tree in the bio. Thank you guys so much for all the love. Take it away.
Okay, so whoever said that about my daughter not being competitive in scholarships, I hate it when people get on there and say things and they're uneducated and know nothing they're talking about. When you're talking about being competitive versus somebody who is, you are competitive and you have the same chance as they do, that's different, but that's not what it is. You don't have the same chance as somebody else because you're not being given things because you're an illegal immigrant. Also, you were talking about...
I have a question. Are you white?
Yes, I am.
Is your daughter white too?
Yes, she is.
Did you know that if affirmative action was still in place today, that your daughter would actually be benefited the most compared to any other demographic of individuals?
So let me finish talking because you just said a whole lot and shut me out.
For sure, sorry.
So you were talking about... you brought up gender. I didn't bring up gender, but so let me throw a question back at you. So on your beliefs, do you believe in the men and boys and transgenders and girls sports? Do you believe in that? Do you
transgender individuals? So what I believe is that I am okay with trans individuals competing in the League of Sports, which aligns with their identity, given that they do not possess an unfair biological advantage over the cis individuals competing in the same sports because of their biological sex. And what we see is that when a trans
They
woman
do.
undergoes 2 to 3 years of HRT or hormone replacement therapy, that according to studies that have been consistently demonstrating this conclusion since the 70s, they don't possess that same unfair biological advantage. Now, let me ask you a question in return. Do you agree with Donald Trump's executive order taking the right away from trans individuals to be in the military?
That is one thing that I am iffy on. I'm not really, and I don't want to take a stance on something that I am honest to God iffy on, because I don't know how I stand particularly on that.
Okay, well, point number one. Okay,
wait, let me finish.
You're agnostic.
Oh,
you
keep
think
cutting
that
me off.
you're agnostic. You think that trans individuals may be too weak to be in the military, but
Nope,
too strong to
I
be
don't
in
think
sports.
that.
And then also, there is 16 trans athletes in the entirety of the NCAA. Donald Trump has been convicted of more felonies and accused of rape by more women than there is trans women in the NCAA, and that's a fact.
Okay, so let me speak now. First of all, I am a nurse. So what you were talking about the HRT therapy and how then they're equal. No, you have so much testosterone that you are born with, and that your levels are still higher, that you don't lose. Even after you go through treatment, you don't lose it. That is why you have an unfair advantage.
Oh.
So let me finish. If guys compete in girls' sports, they absolutely have an unfair advantage. That's why they're blowing all the girls away who work their whole lives. So do I think transgenders
Transgender people, please.
should be able to compete in sports? Absolutely. Against other transgender people. Put yourself against somebody else.
So what is the size of the league going to be? Like 16 people covering
Who
all
cares?
5,000 sports?
But why does that matter? If you're being
Why does it matter if trans women compete in women's sports if they don't possess an unfair biological advantage?
Because they do.
You said that they possess that unfair biological advantage as they possess higher levels of testosterone compared to cis women. That is the most demonstrably false point that you've made since you've joined the live, okay? There is like a billion avenues that you could take to try to debate this point and ultimately fail, but this is probably the worst point because you understand that hormone replacement therapy unironically includes particular receptors that block the production of testosterone in the physiology of trans women's bodies. That is the most demonstrably false point you've made since you've joined. I'll give you an opportunity to talk about something else. Because once again, he's been accused of rape by more women than there's T women in the NCAA. He has violated the Constitution more times than the amount of times trans women have joined the NCAA.
Okay, so HRT therapy, all that does is block the production of more of the testosterone. It does not undo previous hormone fluctuations. And that's what I tried to say. I'm interested in having an honest debate, but I'm not interested in talking about things that aren't factual. So as far as the men...
Do you understand what you just said?
I absolutely know what I just said. It takes it to where it is a close range, but it does not undo it from before. It doesn't.
So yeah, it doesn't go back in time and just eliminate the testosterone that was produced in their bodies 5 years ago.
So why don't?
And why does this matter?
Born a male. Wait a minute. So if you
why
were born a male,
does this matter?
It matters 100%.
Wait, I have a question. So I just want to clarify. If a man starts taking like T as a steroid so they could build muscle quicker and faster in the gym, and then they one day stop taking that T, do they continue to gain and retain muscle at the same rate that they did while on the T because they had very high levels of past production?
No, but it doesn't stop it. No, I'm saying it
so
does
like historical
not
fluctuations in hormones, your body has to constantly be producing and replacing your testosterone in order to maintain testosterone levels. That's why when like male athletes that are on steroids get off of steroids, well, they lose all of their gains very fucking quickly because they don't continue to maintain high levels of testosterone production.
But their body's response to it before does not go away. The changes that it doesn't go away, and this could be a very big.
That's the thing that's not true. That's the thing that's
it
not
is
true.
absolutely true.
So muscle size gets smaller, muscle density goes down, bone density goes down, and this has all been demonstrated by studies since the 70s.
You know what? No, there's many studies, and I I guess I can quote them all
Danielle,
for you.
thank you
I
so
know
much
I've
for the
read,
money gun. I
I've done
appreciate
so
you
much
so much for the love,
research on this.
Danielle. So I just want to clarify. So you support Donald Trump, the fascist dictator, because you think adjacent to the facts, because factually you're incorrect.
No, you're
that
factually, you're incorrect
that
on a lot.
16 people in the NCAA. I just want to clarify. Explain to me how you 16 people in the NCAA proposes a bigger threat to this country than a fascist in the Oval Office.
It's not about 16 people posing a bigger threat.
Yeah,
so
you say fuck it. I want to redistribute wealth from the poor to the rich. I want to reduce the after-tax income of 80% of Americans with Donald Trump's BBB that also adds $3.8 trillion to the deficit. I want a fascist that wants to consolidate power to the federal branch of this government that is unapologetically violating the Constitution, that Pass had proposed the largest internal threat to the American democracy when he tried to steal the election from Biden in 2020. You want all of that because 16 people in the NCAA. Explain it to me. I'm seriously. I want you to justify.
It's not because it's 16 people NCAA. And that's what I mean. You are raising your questions and you are putting them out there to totally be leading in one way. I did not ever say because 16 people in NCAA. I'm talking about all across the United States, in high schools, in colleges, girls working really hard for what they have, ending up second or third instead of
So
taking
you care about women's rights?
You're not letting me finish. And because of something they work for and they deserve, but there's taken away from them because somebody wants to identify as a girl and all of a sudden they get to compete. That's not fair.
So you think that, so I explain how it's fair and I explain how you have no evidence to prove me wrong, but I just want to clarify that under your view, you're just trying to fight for women's rights, correct?
Well, that's not all I'm trying to do, but that's one.
Well, did you know that Donald Trump has entailed 66 million human rights violations for American women and girls when he overturned Roe v. Wade? Did you know that every single day there are 60 pregnant victims of rape that are denied access to abortion because Donald Trump overturned Roe v. Wade?
See, I disagree with that.
So what's a bigger issue? 66 million human rights violations in America that currently exist, or 16 people in the NCAA?
Wait, why are you saying Donald Trump overturned it? The Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
He elected 3 justices to the Supreme Court with the explicit intent.
You just showed
the facts are that he elected 3 justices to the Supreme Court with the explicit intention of overturning it, and which then he claimed credit for once they overturned it. He's the one that claims credit, not me.
Okay, so the Supreme Court overturned it, just like a few minutes ago when you showed me a Supreme Court thing and said, okay, so the courts did this.
This is true.
And also, and let me finish, and also they didn't say, okay, now abortion's banned. They sent it back to the states. Donald Trump never said it's a ban, it shouldn't happen. What he said is let the states, each state be in charge of it. But see, that doesn't get talked about. Everybody pushes the narrative the way they need it to fit their narrative, but that's not it. He didn't ever say, well, maybe he's against abortion. Honestly, it doesn't matter to me. What he said is let the states handle it. And I agree with that.
Yeah. So the reason why this is ultimately still his fault is because he knew that once it was pushed back down to the states, they would ban it. This is like me giving a loaded fucking gun to a serial killer, knowing that they're going to take that gun and kill a family of 5. Not to mention that the logic, that the logic that you're trying to argue in bad faith right now is the same logic that Confederates upheld to support slavery. For instance, Robert E. Lee, the head runner of the Confederacy for the Civil War, what was his supposed historical position? Oh, that he came into ownership of a plantation and freed the slaves. He didn't personally want to own any slaves. He just wanted to fight for states' rights. And they thought it was unjustified for the federal government to be able to tell them what they can and can't do within their own states. Oh my God, does this mean that Robert E. Lee wasn't a bad person? No, he's a terrible person because a states' right which he fought for was a human rights violation. And the same thing can be true about what Donald Trump fought for and the outcome and which has been consequential of it. Acknowledge that, yes, Donald Trump did know that states would ban it. Acknowledge that, yes, when the states ban it, millions of American women lost that access. Acknowledge that, yes, in 10 states specifically, because Donald Trump banned it and then advocated for no federal protections, 60 pregnant rape victims per day are denied access to resources. You either have to be stupid or willfully ignorant to deny what I'm saying, because, ma'am, I fear this is common sense.
Okay, so I'm not stupid at all. Thank you for that. And I'm not willfully ignorant, but I'm telling you that, first of all, I'll tell you my opinion because I am totally open with saying that. I don't believe in abortion anyway. That's my personal opinion. I don't agree that it is the women's right to choose because I think you chose when you chose to do the act that created the baby. So I think it's a baby. I think it's a baby that's dependent on you. and that's how it is. But my opinion, I'm not pushing on other people, just like I don't want them to push it on me. But the fact is the fact. It was sent back to the states, and many states do not agree with Donald Trump. I live in Illinois. We don't agree with Donald Trump at all. I mean, at all. They're a Democratic state all the way. There's many states like that, California. So it isn't that, oh, he knew all the states would ban it, because they're not banning it. Some states are banning it, but that would be leaving it in the hands of the people. Just like it is in the states that don't ban it, even if I don't agree with it, it's what it is. And as far as the guys competing in girls' sports, no. In 2022, the regulations changed where they didn't even make people show their testosterone levels. If you just identified as a girl, especially in high schools, you got to go and compete in the sports. Not fair. Second of all, they opened bathrooms to guys and girls. The thing is, there were so many thoughts people had that they started impeding on other people's rights. Like my daughter, or many people's daughters, have a right to go in a bathroom with other girls and it be only girls. They have a right to go in there and not feel like there's a guy in there with them. It doesn't matter if the guy says he's a girl. Biologically, he's not a girl. And he shouldn't get to go in the bathrooms with other girls who are showering, going to the bathroom. It's not fair. It's not. And so you guys can talk about all you want, how things should be upheld. But when you start talking and it got down this path of like total craziness, because somebody who wants to identify as a girl's rights are more important than an actual girl and protecting their rights because you're trampling all over them. I mean, it's just got so out of bunk. And I am so glad Biden's not in power anymore.
Okay, so you just spoke for 3 minutes. I think that you have to be able to acknowledge that I can't listen to you for 3 minutes and then be able to perfectly rehash and respond to everything you just said. But I think I'm able to acknowledge like most of what you just said. So here's what I'm going to do. First, I'm going to have two counter arguments that I'm going to propose to you against the last claim about the fact that you don't think that trans women should be able to use the women's restroom, because in fact, I think they should be able to because it promotes women's safety. We'll get on to that. But I want to start off with a question, and then the last thing we'll go on to is abortion, because I think that you are wrong there as well. So let me ask you a question. Do you think like if trans women could use a women's restroom, that then like cis men would like take advantage of that, just say they're trans women, then go into the restroom and take advantage of women?
I don't know if I think it or not. I just think that
What if like a cis man like me did that? Like walked into a women's changing room where there's like naked teenagers. Okay,
Absolutely.
if an individual running for a public office ever did that, would you support them?
I don't know. You're trying to talk about something in a big broad range.
Well, I mean, but it is a broad range, but at the same time, like this broad range should be like incredibly condemnable. If there's like a man like me that walks into the changing rooms of like naked teenagers and loves it, and they're just super creepy and they're like 50 years old, and then they ran for a public office, would you ever consider voting for them since you're such a strong advocate of women and girls' rights?
Okay, so first of all, I would need to know for sure this person did this because
Okay.
I don't
Sure.
run
You need
stuff.
certain evidence. That's fair.
Yes, I do.
If you had certain evidence, would you ever support them?
Yeah, and I don't just support a party, like I told you. I support people.
So then
and
so please answer my question. If you had certain evidence that some creepy old dude that was running for public office did this and loved it and boasted about it.
You're saying if he boasted about going into a girl's bathroom and looking at girls in there,
Yeah,
would I
changing
support
room.
him?
Yeah, had like naked girls, yeah.
No, of course I wouldn't support him.
Okay, so hypothetically, like this doesn't exist. I just want to see that you're seriously not a party loyalist. But I'm going to be honest, Trump hasn't done this. But if Trump did do this, would you stop supporting him right now?
I just told you I don't support anybody that would do that.
So if Trump
I-
did do this, you'd
no.
stop supporting him right now.
Absolutely, if he did that.
So
Absolutely.
like hypothetically, you'd say I'd no longer support Trump.
Yes, I could say that if I believed he walked into a bathroom and to look at naked teenagers, but I don't believe that.
No takesy backsies.
No, I know he didn't do that.
Here's
You're gonna
Trump. Here's Trump on Howard Stern's radio show. Take a listen.
See a beautiful woman, you want to have that. You're
Well,
a guy
you
who likes
certainly
to have
think-
everything, right?
Well, couldn't that be construed, however, as
Conflict?
yes?
I don't see it as a
It
conflict.
could be a conflict of interest, but it's the kind of thing you worry about later.
Oh, I see.
You tend to think about the conflict a little bit later
The
on.
question is, how can it not be construed?
No, I mean, some of these foreign girls, Mr. Trump, in my country, we say hello with vagina. And
Well, you could also say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now, tell
Well,
me
I'll
what
tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere. And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
You're like a
everything is
doctor.
good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible-looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
No
Okay,
takesy
so
backsies.
there isn't a takesy backsy because you brought a little skit of something of them talking. He never said he went in underage girls' locker rooms. Not one time.
Do you know what the show
That's
was
exactly
for?
what I'm talking about. No, but that's what I'm talking
What
about.
was
You
what
guys,
was the pageant changing room? What was the pageant called?
I don't know what it was called.
Luckily,
but he
I
never.
do. Do you want to? Do you know?
Okay.
Let's. So what? So the the pageant that he owned, it was called Miss Teen USA.
Okay, I know 100%. If that would have been factual, that would have been so plastered all over everywhere.
You
Honest
just
to
heard
God,
it.
and
You just
know
heard
it
him
too.
say it.
I just heard it, but I heard part of it, something that you played that was probably different pieces put together. I've heard that lots of time. But then when I went and investigated it for myself,
I
it
would like to
wasn't.
clarify that this was absolutely blasted everywhere, particularly when Hillary was running against him. This it was so big that he had to respond to half of it, which was Access Hollywood tapes. But what I just played you was he never responded to this. What I just played you was one consistent, non-cut clip of Donald Trump admitting to walking in to the changing rooms of naked teenagers at Miss Teen USA, which was a pageant that he owned, and he even said at the end that he could even get away from it. So here's my big issue with you. You just told me that if Trump did this, you'd say that you don't support him and you'd revoke your support right here, right now. But how has your attitude responded once I actually played you the clip and actually definitively proved that that's something Trump has done? You still deny it. And I want you to embarrass the fuck out of yourself. So I'm going to just shut the hell up. I'm going to pass the mic over to you. Listen to my question closely, okay? Listen very closely. Explain why before you knew that Trump had done this, before you knew that Trump had walked into little girls' changing rooms, you said if he did do it, you'd never support him again. But then after you knew that Donald Trump had walked into the changing rooms of half-naked teenagers, you still support him. Explain to me the logic underpinning this very hypocritical conclusion. Take it away. I'm not going to interrupt. Go for it.
Because I don't believe.
I accidentally just muted you. I meant to mute myself. That was ridiculous. Sorry. Go ahead.
Because I don't believe he did it at all. I don't believe that was an uncut conversation.
Ma'am, you heard an admission of guilt. Where was the cuts? There was no cuts in that clip. You
What
didn't
he
hear a cut.
said is, I'll go backstage and I'm allowed to go in because, I'm the owner. But he never, ever said, but I went in when they were naked at all. He never said that. And I don't think he did.
He did. He does say that in the clip. I'll replay it. And we could listen to it a couple times. He did indeed say that he did went in when they're naked. Just listen closely.
It could be a conflict of interest, but it's the kind of thing you worry about later.
Oh, I see.
You tend to think about the conflict a little bit later
The
on.
question is, how can it not be construed?
No, I mean, some of these foreign girls, Mr. Trump, in my country, we say hello with vagina. And
Well, you could also say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now, tell
Well,
me
I'll
what
tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else.
First indicator of evidence. He said they were getting dressed, not that they already got dressed. But let's go on to the admission where he just straight up says they were naked.
And, no men are anywhere.
Second admission, he says no men are anywhere because it was a women and girls changing room.
And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it. I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
You're like a
everything is
doctor.
good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes.
Oh, did we hear that? Let's go ahead and play that again. Again. And in fact, this time, we're going to go ahead and slow it down, and we're going to play it on 0.5 speed. Take a listen.
I want to make sure that
You're like a
everything
doctor.
is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And
Okay, so Trump did talk about going in there, but he didn't just own Miss Teen. He also owned Miss USA and Miss Universe. And so specifically what Trump said he was talking about there was Miss USA and Miss Universe, not teens. And this is exactly why it was stupid of me to come on here, because you guys always try to change the
wait,
narrative.
wait, if you're right, why should I care? Like, okay, so he didn't walk into a teenager's changing room. He walked into an adult's changing room.
Okay, that makes a huge difference.
Why?
Does that say a good character?
Wait. Could you
Absolutely
please
not.
tell me why that makes a difference?
Okay, first
Wait,
of all,
are you saying that it's only wrong to violate the sanctity,
didn't.
consent, and space of minors?
No, I'm not. What I'm saying is he didn't say he's seen anybody naked. I didn't hear that when you played it the second time
Okay,
either.
when people don't have clothes on, are they naked?
He said going into locker rooms, people aren't fully dressed, but when he never said I walked in there when they were naked. What
Yes,
he
he
said
did.
is I was allowed to. No, he didn't. He
Yeah,
said I was allowed to.
Listen. Also,
And
he was allowed to because he made the rules.
Yeah, but he didn't do it.
Listen. If you're okay, let me ask you a question. If you're standing somewhere with no clothes, does it imply that you're standing there naked?
Okay, he didn't say he said they're getting dressed, not fully clothed, but he didn't say he went in there then.
Well, I'm so sorry. Are we like living in the same reality? Like his quote is everyone okay? You know they're standing there with no clothes. Listen, ma'am, stop being outrageous. Just use your ears. Just use your ears. No. Just use your ears. Listen to him say, you know they're standing there with no clothes. Just please use your ears.
They're standing there with no clothes.
Do I need to play it again?
Okay, but play the end. He said, and you see these incredible looking women, and so I sort of get away with things like that, but no, I've been very good.
Listen.
Sure,
You're like a
everything
doctor.
is good.
You're there.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes. Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women. And so I sort of get away with things like that.
He said he gets away with things like
And then
walking
he
into the
said-
changing rooms of women
no.
without consent when they're not wearing clothes.
No, then he said, but I've been good. I haven't done that. I'm reading the whole article right here, so I know that.
He says that he's done it.
Well, do you not see what you did?
I just want to clarify. Listen, I want you to listen very closely.
No, I've already heard it, and you keep cutting me off.
Ma'am, the next
No.
quote that you're saying doesn't exist because he says at the start, I'll tell you the funniest thing. I'll go backstage before a show.
Doesn't exist.
He
I did
says
read it.
he says that he does it.
You're not listening to me.
Dude, he literally tells Howard Stern that he has done this. I
Right,
just want to
but
clarify.
you're not-
No.
you're not listening to me. No.
He tells Howard Stern that he's done this. Listen.
Country, we say hello with vagina. And
Well, you could also say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now, tell
Well,
me
I'll
what-
tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything.
Yeah, he says that he's done it. I mean, right there. Like, why are you acting like a toddler?
Okay, do you want to let me talk?
Yeah.
Because I'm not acting like a toddler. I don't call names. That's not how I debate, but I know that I appreciate that's how you debate. But I don't act like a toddler. And I'm not saying, again, that I think Trump is an outstanding man. But do I think he said there that I went in there and they were naked? No. But I also, before you cut me off, I also think that you tried to start this conversation as it was.
What the hell?
Muted.
Ma'am.
You tried to start this as a teen.
What the?
You went into a teen's locker room and he didn't.
What the fuck, ma'am? Do we need to like listen to it for a third time? Like, okay, we're gonna break it down.
Said it was a teen, so stop it.
So he said that he walked into these changing rooms. We already addressed the age thing. We agreed that it doesn't matter. Okay.
No,
because
but it absolutely matters. That's why you said a
so
teen.
you think it's only you think it's only wrong to violate the consent of
Nope,
teens, but not
I
of
never
adults.
said that. Quit
Okay,
trying to put
so
words
then
in
why
my
would the
mouth.
difference be relevant whatsoever?
There still is a big difference.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why?
Because teens are not consenting adults at all.
But the adults weren't consenting adults either. They weren't consenting. They weren't consenting. That's the thing. That's the thing. They weren't consenting. Duh! You just told us that it was wrong because teens can't consent. Weren't consenting. Guess what? Although the adults can consent, they weren't.
He never said, and I stand to that he went in and they were naked. We're never going to agree on this. You could play it 20 times over and I still...
I'm going to read you off the quotes and I'm going to make you look like the stupidest person alive. Like seriously, by the end of this speech of mine, you are going to look dumber than a rock to the 11,000 people that are watching. I'm going to tell that to you with certainty. By the time I stop talking, people are going to think pebbles on their porch have a higher IQ than you do. People are going to think the grass in their backyard has a
I'm gonna
higher
end
IQ
this if
than
you
you do. You're not going to end it because I'm still speaking. You're going to leave because I'm proving to people that their fucking plant on the windowsill has a higher IQ than you do.
You
Let's
stop.
listen to the clip. I will let you speak as soon as I'm done. Stop
Nope.
interrupting me. You can speak when I'm done. The reason why you are interrupting me is because you know that you're wrong and you know that I'm about to expose that by literally just playing the fucking clip. Let's listen together. I'm going to disprove your claim. Your claim is that you do not believe that he said he walked into these rooms when they didn't have clothes on. He says he walked into these rooms when they didn't have clothes on. Let's listen together, ma'am.
Owner of the pageant, it's your obligation.
Say hello with vagina. And
Well, you could also say, as the owner of the pageant, it's your obligation to do that.
So you have done that. Now, tell
Well,
me
I'll
what-
tell you the funniest is that I'll go backstage before a show.
Okay, we're going to pause right there. He just said, I'll tell you the funniest thing. I'll go backstage before the show. If this wasn't something he actually did, he wouldn't say, I do it. If this wasn't something he actually did, but simply could did, he said, I could go backstage before the show. No, he said he does go backstage before the show. I'll go backstage before the show. So we already know that he's speaking about something that he has done, that he does. Now we're going to go ahead and finish.
Yes.
And everyone's getting dressed and ready and everything else. And, no men are anywhere.
Second of all, we know that this is a women and girls changing room since he says no men are anywhere. And they also don't have clothes on.
And I'm allowed to go in because I'm the owner of the pageant, and therefore I'm inspecting it.
He said that he's allowed to go in because he owns it and he's therefore inspecting it. This is just a very misogynistic remark of his, just joking about barging into a woman's space where they get dressed without consent. And he comes up with a joke, oh, I'm just inspecting it. And this is known by himself and everybody else in that conversation because look at how the other woman on the radio show responds.
I'm inspecting. I want to make sure that
You're like a
everything
doctor.
is good.
You're there.
The woman says, right. Howard Stern says, you're like a doctor. You're just inspecting the naked women.
Yeah, the dress. Is everyone okay? They're standing there with no clothes.
That was probably the most important statement out of this whole clip because he says they are standing there with no clothes.
Is everybody okay? And you see these incredible looking women.
And then he even says that you see these incredible looking women with no clothes, meaning that not only is he in the women's changing room, not only is there women in there that don't have clothes on, not only is this something that he's done, but he sees them, he's looking at them, and he thinks that they look incredible.
And so I sort of get away with things like that.
And then he finishes it off by saying that I get away with it. Okay? So that implies that this is something he does, that says he does go into those changing rooms. He says, I'll go into those changing rooms. He does see naked women. He said he'll see the great looking women and they're standing there with no clothes. And then he finishes it off by saying that he gets away with it. Okay? Right? So like this argument that you're trying to make, that this isn't something that he's actually done. Okay, well that's false because he says he actually does it. The argument that you're trying to make that they had clothes on, well that's false because he says that they don't have clothes on. So let's stop the brain rot and the nonsense. If you concede right now, if you just admit that I'm right and you're wrong, you will be a hero, okay? Because if you were to admit that you're wrong right now, you would break through, right, the chains and shackles of brainwashing and cult-like behaviors. Right now, you'd break through it all. Oh, in fact, how about we get one of these women up on the live? I just saw Victoria in the chat.
Let me talk now that you said I'm going to let you talk in a minute.
For sure. But I'm actually gonna get one of these women that was a part of his Miss Teen USA up on the live right now. The women that he's talking about in that clip, I'm gonna get one of them up on the live.
Okay, so you're going to let me talk or I seriously am going to end this because you're saying everything you want to say. Do I agree, even if he walked in there and it was an adult woman, do I think they were naked? I still don't think he said I walked in on them naked. What he said is they are changing, they get naked, I'm allowed to go back there. Yes, but I never heard him say I walked in on them naked, first of all. Second of all, it was a Miss USA, and because you did absolutely try to mislead it and say teen in the beginning, and you specifically wanted to point out that it was a teen, and you knew it wasn't. That's what I'm talking about when people go into debates and they try to change the narrative. Third of all, do I think Trump is an upstanding person? Would I marry him? Do I think I like all of his qualities? Absolutely not. There's lots of things about Trump I don't like. I am not defending Trump, as I tried to tell you before, but that's what you tried to turn it back to. What I'm saying is...
Did he or did he not say that they're standing there with no clothes?
I said that they go in there, and
no, did
he
Trump,
said
did,
they go in there,
no,
and they go in there, and they have
Did he
no
not
clothes.
say, and I quote, that they are standing there with no clothes? Was that
He said they go in there and change, some of them with no clothes on, but he never said that's when he went in there.
So did he, I want a yes or a no. I want you to affirm or deny. Trump said, first quote, they're standing there with no clothes, end quote. Do you affirm or deny that?
No, I'm really tired of. I just heard what you said over and over. Okay,
I'm
not defending a rapist.
Meet Victoria. Victoria, how about you tell Janet who you are and why you're here?
Hi, Janet. Sorry, I caught kind of the middle of this. As soon as I hear people talking about Trump in the dressing rooms and the pageants, I always need to chime in just a little bit because there's always a lot of misinformation going on. But yes, you are correct that he didn't just own Miss Teen USA. It was Miss USA. It was Miss Universe at the time. But I was, in fact, one of those teens in 1997. That was the very first year that Donald Trump bought the pageant system. And I was one of the teens that he did walk in on while we were changing. And I have done numerous interviews all over. Yes, it did happen about 2016 when they started contacting everyone, obviously, as soon as they found out that he was running for president. But I was one of the teens that they did contact. And I have verified that he did walk in on us while we were changing. There were some teens that were dressed, some teens that were not dressed. And it was one of our chaperones very last minute that said, hey, we have a surprise visitor. If you can get dressed really quick, please do. And that's why some were nude and some were not at the time. So they didn't say who was coming in, but it was in fact Donald Trump that was our visitor that had walked in on us. But some people were not dressed at the time. And yes, he has walked in on Miss USA contestants in the past as well. And there's a lot more that he has done in the past. It's not just walking in on changing rooms, it's groping, it's unwanted kissing. There's a lot of sexual advances that he's done with women. So there's a lot of essay things that he's done, unfortunately. So the list goes on and on and on. So when you do read these things, that's why he has so many allegations against him, and it just is not only just the dressing room things. So there's definitely a lot out there.
So Janet, how do you feel about everything that Victoria just said? Most
What
importantly, the fact that this woman was one of the teenagers that Donald Trump personally walked in on while they were changing.
Okay, so I'm going to say this. I don't know Victoria at all. If anything like that ever happened to her, then obviously I'm sorry for that. But do I take her word, somebody I don't know that come on here and say this? Absolutely not. Because
Her
obviously
word
you
cooperated
called her
by
up.
Trump.
You called her up. Obviously, you were very easily knowing how to get a hold of her. So she's just somebody that you pulled in on your side. Do I believe it? No.
Victoria, I'm going to play this.
It's been fun talking to you.
No,
I'm
Janet. Okay, I just know that you're going to run away. I think that you're
Janet's going to run because someone's up here that can corroborate your story. So
corroborate, not my story. What Donald Trump said himself.
She doesn't give a shit, and that's
Janet,
what they always do.
They don't care at all. Janet, know it's funny because you were talking about women feeling uncomfortable with trans women in their restroom. All the women in this chat would probably feel uncomfortable as hell with you in their restroom.
You know what?
Okay? You don't just perpetuate grape culture. You don't just perpetuate misogyny. You are an active agent of that shit. okay? You infiltrate that shit into women's
You lead-
circles. You bring in the pain.
Spread
You
lies.
bring in the
You spread
horror.
lies.
Horror. You bring in the shitty men. You prop them up. You say thank you. You shake their hand, and you say go hurt as many people as possible. I think it's deplorable that you spent a fair share of your time up on this live saying that you support Trump because of the mistreatment of young girls and women. But then when Donald Trump personally says that he's mistreated young girls and women, and then one of those individuals who's a woman now that was a young girl at the time joins this live to tell you her story, you look at her in the eyes and you say you're a liar, even though what you just said is exactly what Trump affirmed to Howard Stern on his radio show.
So that's what she started out with, was about the trans and bathroom stuff.
Yeah, trans individuals in the restrooms. Yep.
Holy shit. Wow. No, I would absolutely rather have trans individuals in a restroom than Donald Trump in our dressing rooms any day and place. No, absolutely.
Right. Well, Victoria, I really appreciate you so much for joining up and using your voice to talk about your own experiences, especially as it relates to like some of these like really crazy Trump supporters. You know, like
Dean, anytime. I just get so tired of hearing it.
I bet you do. I bet that out of everybody watching this live, you probably get the most sick and tired because it happened to you yourself. Victoria, I hope that you have a great rest of your day. I'm so sorry that you had to put up with her. Thank you so much for giving us your
Dean,
time.
have a good weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.
Have a good one, Victoria.